Well, this is the type of debate which is dividing friends and family, and it's certainly not a peaceful conversation to bring up at the water cooler at work. So what did you do over the weekend? Well, I was at the protests against Israel's military action in Gaza at the moment. That's just going to start an argument. But hey, where should we stand on these types of things? Is it okay to have strong differences of opinion in this area? Well, somebody who, well, this is his thing, really. Jonathan Ayling from the Free Speech Union. Jonathan, kia ora. Thank you for your time today.
Good morning, Andrew.
This is a heated topic, perhaps the most heated topic at the moment. Who cares about COVID? We've got this thing to be disagreeable about. And look, for good reason. Actually, this involves people's lives. This involves innocent civilians on both sides who have lost their lives. If we can get angry about anything, it is the issue of protecting the innocent and the vulnerable from violence. Having said that, though, I suppose finding some peace, finding some tolerance in amongst the vehement rhetoric.
Absolutely. Look, your question was, where should we stand on this issue? That is not my place to say at all. But the perspective of the Free Speech Union is that free speech does not matter even in contentious discussions. Free speech matters, especially in contentious discussions. And you're absolutely right how quickly we've moved on from a number of other subjects that were so polarizing. And this kind of has taken absolute center stage for the time being now. In New Zealand, across the West, and indeed around the world, this is really such a issue that strikes the heart of so many cultural conversations at the moment. And so the Free Speech Union has launched a public letter calling for a de-escalation of tensions and a return to debates, to discourse, and to tolerance. And I think tolerance is one of those words that is thrown around so much nowadays. We actually often don't think about what it really means. To tolerate someone presupposes you fundamentally disagree with them. Okay. You don't tolerate someone you agree with. We have another word for that. It's agree. Yeah. You tolerate people who there is meaningful difference with. And on this issue, exactly, Kiwis and citizens on both sides, Christians on both sides. And as we've communicated with our list, we've got 100,000 supporters around the country. There's a wide breadth of perspectives on this. And what really concerns me is even in those that are, financial supporters of the Free Speech Union, or those that have regularly engaged with our work saying, oh yeah, but this one's too much. I stand with Israel, or this is too much. I stand against colonizers in Gaza, that kind of thing. And I go, this is not about the substance of the issue. If we can't stand for the rights to express ourselves through speech, I'm very concerned that even in the West, we could see violence emerge from this. And that is the antithesis of free speech. So that's what we're saying. No matter which side of this issue you're standing on, let the other side have their say, even though undoubtedly their opinions and their speech will be deeply offensive to you.
I mean, we can avoid it. Well, we can at least try to avoid it. I was in a situation where I was being yelled at, or there were people yelling in a train station over the weekend, for example. Now, that didn't really bother me at all, but I suppose the question in my mind was, hey, they have a right to do this, they have a right to protest, they are very much letting their voices and the opinions heard. But is this an example of free speech making a difference? Is it taking us towards a positive outcome for either side, or is it just getting other people's backs up? Is it taking us in the opposite direction of peace and tolerance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Like freedom, peace and tolerance cannot be imposed on people.
Yeah.
And so we can't take censorship and say, you can't talk about one side because that's going to upset others. And look, now wonderful, we have peace and tolerance. Isn't that lovely? No, that's just shutting down one side at the expense of the other. Look, free speech is a very difficult enterprise. Just over the weekend, a friend of mine, Jacob in Shangama, who you interviewed about a year ago, Andrew, when he was here in New Zealand, he wrote an article on this just when we were releasing our letter, actually. And he said free speech is often ugly, messy, and hurtful.
Yeah.
Upholding this principle during times of heated conflict is extremely difficult for humans prone to be ruled by passion rather than reason. But in its essence, free speech is the antithesis antithesis of violence and allows us to settle differences through dialogue, understanding, and compromise. And I hope your listeners can keep that in mind. Dialogue, understanding, and compromise is what we're working towards. And actually, free speech has a pretty good track record of being able to help us navigate incredibly fraught differences. And again, I can hear the responses from your listeners already saying, yeah, but they weren't talking about a genocide then, or yeah, but Israel's just fighting for its right to survive. I know all the talking points on both sides. I have very strong opinions on this myself, so I don't feel like I am ignorant in calling for civil dialogue on this. But no, while it's not a silver bullet and it doesn't lead to peace and harmony overnight, the alternative to free speech is far, far worse. And I think even in New Zealand we've seen small forms of violence, destruction of private property, some people scuffles, that kind of thing. I was really concerned when a member of Parliament had to be escorted out of a protest last week for condemning the violence of Hamas. Phil Twyford stood up and said, I condemn the violence of Hamas, but of course I also condemn the violence of Israel. And that was really his point. Yeah. But the crowd only heard that he condemned the violence of Hamas, and he had to be escorted out by police because the crowd was so incensed by that. That is unacceptable. That is shocking to me. That is frightening to me. And if New Zealanders do not stand up and set a different tone on this course, which is that yes, free speech may lead to two sides lining up and yelling at each other, but better words than sticks and stones. Yep. I'm not sure where we'll end up. So, yeah, I think this is the best we can do at the moment.
And so for people, yes, have an opinion. Yes, be passionate about your opinion. Yes, have reasons for what you believe. And if this is a positive way of expressing that is to go to protests and wave banners and those sorts of things. However, don't make it personal. Don't use. You can use your words, but don't hit people with stuff, and don't take away other people's free speech who have a different opinion to yourself. Now, something else which you did over the weekend, tabling a letter for people, and hopefully people from both sides of the debate to sign up to and say, yes, we have strong opinions, but what we agree on is tolerance and peace. Not just in Gaza, not just in the Middle East, but here in Aotearoa, New Zealand as well.
Well, and look, I would say especially in New Zealand, to be honest, while admirable may be the claims of those trying to call for peace in the Middle East and that kind of thing, and it's not to say we can't do anything. That is quite a hefty goal to try and achieve, though. But what we can do is say, what is in front of me right now? What do I have responsibility for? Where can I actually have a meaningful influence? And the way we engage with people as we walk down Queen Street, the way we engage with people as we walk past Aotea Square, these are the things that are right in front of us. And so that's why our public letter starts off by saying we disagree on many things. And how to address the conflict in the Middle East is certainly primary amongst them. And this is not about saying the conflict should stop entirely. There's a very legitimate form of argument that says Israel has been attacked. As a sovereign nation, it has a right to respond. So we're not talking about that conflict. We're saying in New Zealand, as we debate this issue, we are getting troublingly close to expressions of violence. And in New Zealand, there is no justification for violence. So I really encourage your listeners. We have had thousands and thousands of Kiwis, again, from across this issue respond. And one of the features of our public letter online is you can sign the letter and then add a comment in a section as you sign to say, this was my thinking as I signed it. And the number of people who sign it and say, we want peace, and say, but this doesn't mean I don't, whatever. And you can add those caveats. That's filling in your expression and your perspective on this. But what it's saying is together we stand against intolerance. Well, that has to be our bottom line.
That is so important. And hey, love the fact that the Free Speech Union are allowing people to have their say and not just sign exactly the thoughts and views of Jonathan Ayling and the team. But having said that, very much appreciate the stances you've taken on this contentious and volatile issue. If people wanted to find out more, have a look at the letter and certainly prayerfully consider signing that and taking a stand towards peace and tolerance in New Zealand. What's the best way of connecting, Jonathan?
As always, go fsu.nz. That's our website there. There's a sign the petition option. And on our social media, on Facebook and on Twitter, you can easily see it there. Share it around. Let's change the narrative that's at work here right now. New Zealand is already divided enough on many other issues. I don't think we need to add this to the list. And I think there is a movement of people saying we can disagree and we can do that agreeably. And hopefully your listeners are able to come alongside that as well.
We certainly appreciate what you do. Jonathan, kia ora, thanks for your time today.
Thanks a lot, Andrew.